You feel the quiet shift long before you admit it. Something in you knows that spiritually awake men learn faster, not because they are gifted, not because they have special talent, but because they sense the truth that ordinary men avoid. They feel their resistance instead of running from it. They stay with the tension instead of numbing it. And as the world floods itself with distractions and shortcuts, the spiritually awake man becomes a rarity, a living anomaly. What no one tells you is that ancient Japan understood this long before modern science. They created a system that used awareness as a weapon, a system that turned ordinary men into masters, a system that could accelerate your learning 10 times faster if you have the courage to walk through its stages. But the catch is simple. Most men who call themselves awake are not awake enough to survive the first stage. Before you move deeper, take one breath and acknowledge the one skill you have avoided for years. You know exactly which one it is. The one that calls you. The one you pretend you will start someday. Hold it quietly in your chest as we begin. You step into the life of Elijah Morgan, a 32-year-old man who has convinced himself he is spiritually aware. He meditates here and there. He journals when he feels lost. He reads books about consciousness, shadow work, masculine energy, ego dissolution. He knows the concepts. He knows the language. He even knows how to sound awakened in conversations. But his life tells a different story. He cannot stay consistent with anything. He starts breathwork but quits after 3 days. He joins a yoga class but stops when it becomes physically uncomfortable. He tries to build his intuition but mistrusts his impulses. He tells himself he is growing, yet everything remains the same. He is the kind of man who thinks insight is progress, who mistakes awareness for action. You know this pattern. You have lived it. You understand it too well. The breaking moment arrives at a weekend workshop. A simple exercise requires participants to hold a posture while maintaining steady breath. Elijah lasts only a few seconds before collapsing out of it. He looks around and sees men twice his age holding it without wavering. He feels something crack inside him. It is not embarrassment. It is the realization that spiritual awareness without mastery is just decoration. He feels like a hollow tree, bark without roots. He leaves the workshop early and wanders through the quiet streets until he enters a small meditation hall out of instinct, the kind of place that feels older than the building itself. Inside sits an elderly monk whose presence stops Elijah in an instant. The monk does not speak. He only raises a wooden sword and performs a single fluid movement that is so clean, so effortless, so present that Elijah feels his chest tighten. The monk sees the confusion in Elijah's eyes and finally speaks. You see the movement, but you cannot feel it because your awareness is separate from your action. Elijah asks how that separation can be removed. The monk gives a name, Takwen Soho. Zen philosopher, swordsman, spiritual guide to samurai, and creator of a method that binds awareness to mastery. A method called Shuhari, 3 stages: surrender, disruption, transcendence. Elijah feels a pull in his heart, the same pull you feel right now. The monk invites him to begin the first stage. The next morning, Elijah arrives before sunrise. Takwen hands him a wooden sword and gives only one instruction: perform a single cut. The same movement, again and again. Not a few times, not until it feels comfortable. 1,000 repetitions. Elijah begins with enthusiasm. After 50 repetitions, his excitement fades. After 100, his shoulders ache. After 200, his mind rebels. He becomes bored, irritated, restless. He starts thinking the exercise is primitive, unnecessary. He questions the monk's wisdom. He questions himself. Every repetition exposes another layer of his impatience, another layer of his attachment to quick results, another piece of his spiritual ego. You know this feeling. You think you are awake until repetition shows you the truth. Awareness without discipline is a mirage. Reflection without endurance is fantasy. And this is the moment where 99% of men fail, not because the exercise is too intense, but because it is too simple. The modern world taught you that boredom is a threat, but in ancient Japan, boredom was the gateway to skill. This is the part no one tells you. Repetition is confrontation. Repetition is purification. Repetition is ego death. Harvard researchers published a study in 2014 showing that deep repetition performed with conscious attention accelerates neural circuitry formation far more effectively than scattered practice. Your awareness is a catalyst. Elijah does not know that study, but he feels the shift as the repetitions continue. His breath aligns with the movement. His overthinking dissolves. His body begins to move before the thought arises. Something ancient awakens in him, not mystical, mechanical. Spiritual awareness merging with physical reality. He completes his final repetition with tears he does not understand. But the next day he almost quits. He tells himself the practice is too rigid. He tells himself spirituality should feel expansive. He tells himself repetition is not aligned with his intuition. The monk sees through his excuses. Taquin tells him the truth. If your awareness cannot withstand boredom, it is not awareness. It is comfort pretending to be depth. Elijah stays, and in staying he becomes the kind of man you have always wanted to become but never committed to becoming. Weeks pass, his movements sharpen, his awareness stabilizes. He breathes through frustration instead of collapsing beneath it. And just when he begins to feel confident, Taquin brings him into the second stage. Controlled breaking. A second instructor enters the room, a blind swordsman who moves with an entirely different energy. Where Taquin emphasizes emptiness, stillness, and soft intention, the blind swordsman teaches the opposite: total focus, full presence, high tension, sharp intention. Elijah is confused. One teacher tells him to relax, the other tells him to tighten. One teaches him to dissolve effort, the other teaches him to embrace it. Elijah feels spiritually destabilized. His beliefs contradict the training. His intuition clashes with instruction. The contradiction is the lesson. Spiritual men cling to concepts because they feel safe, but mastery lies in the space between opposing truths. A study from the University of Tokyo in 2019 revealed that switching between contradictory paradigms increases neural flexibility dramatically, especially when the learner maintains self-awareness. Elijah begins to understand. He stops trying to control the meaning of each exercise. He starts letting the body learn what the mind cannot articulate. Days blur. Some mornings he trains in silence. Other mornings he trains blindfolded. Some afternoons he practices slow movements. Other afternoons he practices explosive ones. His awareness stretches to contain all of it. He stops identifying with one method. He begins to see principles beneath techniques: breath, balance, timing, stillness within motion, motion within stillness. What once felt confusing now feels like revelation. He is becoming fluid, adaptive. Awake in motion rather than awake in thought. Then comes the third stage, transcendence. Taquin places Elijah in the center of a dimly lit hall. 3 students surround him. Elijah is blindfolded. His task is simple: perform one perfect cut while the students try to disrupt him. He stands still. His breath slows. His awareness expands. He feels footsteps without seeing them. He feels tension in the air before bodies move. The moment the first student steps forward, Elijah cuts through the air with a movement so precise that even the students hesitate. The second student rushes him and misses entirely. The third tries to strike from behind, but Elijah steps aside instinctively. He removes the blindfold. Taquin nods. Elijah has entered the state of no mind. Awareness and skill have merged. Thought has vanished. There is only presence and expression. This is the state you search for every time you begin something new. The state where learning becomes natural instead of forced, where repetition becomes expression, where you stop trying and simply become. Elijah returns home with a shift in his energy. People notice instantly. He walks with quiet confidence. He listens fully. He moves with intention. Some admire it. Many feel uncomfortable. He speaks less, but the weight of his presence says more than his words ever did. His friends joke that he is becoming too serious. Some accuse him of thinking he is better than them. Others jokingly question if he joined a secret order. They say it lightly, but the discomfort is real. Elijah realizes a truth that you have felt too. When you begin to grow, you become a mirror. Your presence reflects the parts people avoid within themselves, and many would rather silence the mirror than face their own reflection. He almost shrinks himself to make them comfortable, but that instinct dies quickly. He chooses to remain aligned rather than accepted. You feel the importance of this choice. Growing spiritually means outgrowing the version of yourself that needs approval. You begin to see how Shuhari applies to your own life. Meditation becomes mastery when you stop switching techniques and repeat one breath practice daily. Physical training becomes mastery when you repeat one foundational movement until your body rewrites itself. Business becomes mastery when you commit to one offer and refine it instead of chasing endless strategies. Guitar becomes mastery when you practice one riff 1,000 times instead of 10 riffs badly. Coding becomes mastery when you rewrite one function until it becomes muscle memory. Everything simplifies when awareness meets repetition. But here is the truth you have avoided. You are spiritually awake enough to see your patterns, but not disciplined enough to break them. You talk about energy, intuition, consciousness, but you collapse at the first sign of boredom. You understand your emotions, but you don't master them. You know your shadows, but you don't outgrow them. And the reason you haven't mastered a skill is simple. You don't repeat anything long enough to become someone new. You chase spiritual insight because it feels good. But insight is the beginning, not the transformation. Elijah learned that the hard way. You must learn it now. If you want to become a man who learns 10 times faster, you must kill the part of you that believes that understanding is enough. You must bury the identity that avoids discomfort. You must surrender to the long silence of repetition. Elijah eventually begins teaching others, not as a guru but as a guide. His approach is simple. He tells students that motivation comes after repetition, not before it. Oxford researchers published a study in 2020 confirming that competence drives motivation, not the reverse. If you wait to feel ready, you will wait your entire life. He teaches a simple path. Choose one skill. Repeat one micro movement every day. Remove distractions. Break rules only after mastering them. Test your awareness under pressure. Share what you have learned with someone else. He does not present these as steps. He presents them as a path, a way of living. And now the focus returns to you, the man listening, the man who feels the pull, the man who knows he is meant for more. You stand at the edge of your own Shuhari. You feel the call to begin. The first stage awaits you. You know the skill. You know the truth. You know what this moment requires. Whisper the skill to yourself. Choose it fully, and take your first repetition today.